Marcus Rodriguez stood at the edge of the shooting range, watching the other recruits pack up their gear. Another day, another round of whispers behind his back. At 5 feet 6 inches and weighing barely 140 pounds, he looked nothing like the towering soldiers around him. His quiet demeanor and soft-spoken nature made him an easy target for ridicule. "Hey, Rodriguez, maybe you should try the kitchen instead of the rifle range," called out Sergeant Thompson, a massive man with arms like tree trunks. The other recruits laughed, but Marcus just nodded politely and continued cleaning his weapon. He had heard worse. Growing up in a small town in Texas, Marcus had learned to shoot from his grandfather, a World War II veteran who taught him that patience and precision mattered more than size and strength. While other kids played video games, Marcus spent hours in the woods, learning to read wind patterns and calculate distances. His grandfather always said, "A good marksman doesn't need to be the biggest man in the room. He just needs to be the smartest." The military recruitment officer had been skeptical when Marcus walked into the office. "You sure you want to be infantry, son? We have some great technical positions available." But Marcus had his mind set on becoming a sniper. It wasn't about glory or proving anything to anyone. He simply knew he had a gift and he wanted to use it to protect others. Basic training was brutal for Marcus. While his marksmanship scores were consistently perfect, he struggled with the physical demands. Push-ups, pull-ups, and long runs left him exhausted while others seemed to breeze through. The drill sergeants were particularly hard on him, questioning whether he belonged in the program. "Rodriguez, you think this is summer camp?" Drill Sergeant Williams would scream in his face. Real soldiers don't have time to babysit weaklings. But Marcus never gave up. Every night when others were sleeping, he would do extra exercises, determined to meet the standards. His bunkmates weren't much better. They would hide his gear, put salt in his coffee, and make jokes about his appearance. Marcus endured it all in silence, focusing on his goal. He knew that complaining would only make things worse, and he had learned long ago that action spoke louder than words. The turning point came during a particularly challenging field exercise. The recruits were tasked with hitting targets at various distances while under simulated combat conditions. Most soldiers were using standard rifles, but Marcus had requested permission to use a sniper rifle for the exercise. "You think you're special, Rodriguez?" asked Sergeant Thompson. "Fine, but when you fail, you're out of the program." The pressure was enormous. Every eye was on Marcus as he took position. The targets were placed at distances ranging from 300 to 800 meters, with wind conditions changing throughout the day. Marcus took his time, studying each target carefully. He could feel the skeptical stares of his fellow recruits and the drill sergeants. His heart was pounding, but his hands remained steady. Years of training with his grandfather had taught him to control his breathing and block out distractions. The first shot rang out across the range. Bullseye. The second shot followed quickly. Another perfect hit. By the time Marcus had finished the course, he had achieved something that no recruit in the base's history had accomplished. A perfect score on every target. Regardless of distance or conditions, the silence that followed was deafening. Even Sergeant Thompson seemed stunned. The drill sergeants gathered around the targets, checking and rechecking the results. There was no denying what had happened. The small, quiet recruit they had all dismissed had just demonstrated skills that surpassed even their own. Word of Marcus's performance spread quickly through the base. Suddenly, the same people who had mocked him were asking for shooting tips. Officers who had never noticed him before were calling him into their offices. But Marcus remained humble, continuing to train hard and improve his skills. The Special Forces recruitment officer arrived 3 weeks later. Captain Sarah Mitchell was a decorated veteran who had served multiple tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. She had heard about the recruit who was breaking records on the shooting range and wanted to see for herself. "Rodriguez, I've been watching your progress," she said during their first meeting. "Your scores are impressive, but I need to know, can you handle the pressure of real combat? Being a sniper isn't just about hitting targets on a range. It's about making split-second decisions that can save or cost lives." Marcus looked her straight in the eye. "Ma'am, I know I don't look like much and I know people doubt me. But I've never missed when it mattered, and I never will. Give me a chance to prove it." Captain Mitchell nodded slowly. She had seen plenty of cocky recruits who talked big but folded under pressure. But there was something different about Marcus, a quiet confidence that came from years of preparation and an unwavering dedication to his craft. The advanced sniper training program was even more demanding than basic training. Only 12 recruits were selected from thousands of applicants, and the dropout rate was over 60%. The physical demands were extreme, but the mental pressure was even worse. Students were required to remain motionless for hours, make calculations under stress, and perform in all weather conditions. Marcus excelled in every area except one: leadership. His quiet nature and small stature made it difficult for him to command respect from other trainees. During team exercises, his suggestions were often ignored, even when they proved to be correct. The instructors noted this weakness in his evaluations, questioning whether he had the presence needed for special operations. As the training progressed, Marcus found himself paired with Jake Sullivan, a former college football player from Ohio who stood 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 220 pounds. Jake was everything Marcus wasn't: loud, confident, and naturally commanding. The two men couldn't have been more different, but they gradually developed a mutual respect. "You know, Rodriguez," Jake said one evening as they cleaned their rifles, "I used to think you were just lucky on the range. But after watching you work, I realize you're probably the best shot I've ever seen. Problem is, nobody else seems to notice." Marcus shrugged. "Doesn't matter what they think. What matters is getting the job done." The final phase of training would put all their skills to the test in a realistic combat simulation. Teams of 2 would be inserted into hostile territory, with limited supplies and communications. Their mission was to gather intelligence and eliminate high-value targets while avoiding capture. It was the ultimate test of everything they had learned. The helicopter dropped Marcus and Jake deep in the mountains of North Carolina at 0300 hours. They had 72 hours to complete their mission objectives and reach the extraction point. The simulation was designed to be as realistic as possible, with opposing forces hunting them and electronic surveillance monitoring their every move. Marcus carried his customized rifle, a weapon he had spent months learning to operate perfectly. Every component had been adjusted to his specifications: the trigger pull, scope settings, and even the stock length. Jake handled communications and navigation, relying on Marcus's expertise for any long-range engagements. Their first objective was to observe and photograph a suspected enemy communications facility located in a valley 12 kilometers away. The journey would take them through rough terrain, and they needed to remain undetected while gathering intelligence. "This is insane," Jake whispered as they moved through the darkness. "How are we supposed to cover that much ground without being spotted?" But Marcus was already studying the topographical maps, identifying the best route that would provide cover and concealment. The two men moved carefully through the forest, with Marcus taking point despite being the smaller of the two. His years of hunting had taught him to move silently and read the environment. He could spot potential hiding places and danger areas that Jake would have missed entirely. By dawn, they had covered 8 kilometers and were positioned on a ridge overlooking their target. Marcus set up his rifle while Jake established communications with headquarters. Through his scope, Marcus could see enemy personnel moving around the facility, completely unaware they were being watched. "I count 12 hostiles," Marcus reported quietly. 2 guards at the main entrance, 4 patrolling the perimeter, and 6 inside the building based on movement patterns. His observations were precise and detailed, providing exactly the information their commanders needed. Jake was impressed by Marcus's ability to gather intelligence just by watching. "How do you know there are 6 inside?" he asked. Marcus pointed to the windows. "Watch the shadows and light patterns. You can track individual movements if you know what to look for." Their second objective required them to move to another location and eliminate a high-value target. This would test Marcus's shooting skills under realistic combat conditions. The target was a senior enemy officer who would only be exposed for brief moments as he moved between buildings. The new position was 3 kilometers away, requiring them to move during daylight while avoiding enemy patrols. Marcus planned their route carefully, using natural terrain features and vegetation for concealment. His small size became an advantage as he could hide in places where larger soldiers would be easily spotted. "Rodriguez, you're like a ghost," Jake observed as they reached their new position without being detected. "I've never seen anyone move through terrain like that." Marcus just smiled. His grandfather had taught him that the best hunters were invisible to their prey. Setting up for the shot, Marcus had to calculate multiple variables. The target was 600 meters away, with crosswinds gusting up to 15 miles per hour. The elevation difference added another complication, and he would have only a 3-second window when the target appeared. Target approaching from the north, Jake reported, watching through binoculars. 30 seconds. Marcus controlled his breathing and settled into position. His heart rate slowed as he entered the focused state his grandfather had taught him. Everything else disappeared except the crosshairs in the target area. 20 seconds. Marcus made final adjustments to his scope, accounting for wind speed and direction. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, applying just enough pressure to remove slack without firing. 10 seconds. Target visible. The enemy officer appeared in Marcus's scope exactly as predicted. Without hesitation, Marcus squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect, striking the target center mass. The officer dropped immediately. Confirmed hit, Jake reported. Target down. But their celebration was short-lived. The gunshot had alerted enemy forces to their general location, and search teams were already mobilizing. "We need to move now," Marcus said, already packing his equipment. His grandfather had taught him that the shot was only half the job. Getting away safely was equally important. The two men began moving toward their extraction point, but enemy forces were closing in fast. As they moved through the forest, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. Fresh boot prints in the mud, indicating that enemy forces had anticipated their route and were setting up an ambush ahead. "Jake, we have a problem," he whispered, pointing to the tracks. Jake studied the prints and realized they were walking into a trap. "What do we do?" Marcus was already formulating a plan. His small size and knowledge of the terrain gave them options that most soldiers wouldn't consider. "Follow me and do exactly what I do," Marcus instructed. Instead of continuing on the obvious route, he led them up a steep rocky slope that most people would consider impassable. His rock climbing experience from his youth served him well as he found handholds and footholds that allowed them to bypass the ambush entirely. From their elevated position, they could see the enemy forces waiting in concealment below. "There must be 20 of them," Jake observed. If they had continued on their original path, they would have walked directly into a crossfire situation with no chance of escape. Marcus was already planning their next move. "We can't go around them and we can't wait them out. Our extraction window is only 6 hours away." He studied the enemy positions through his scope, noting their locations and movement patterns. "What are you thinking?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Marcus was considering engaging the entire enemy force from their current position. "I can take out their sentries and create confusion," Marcus explained. "Once they start looking for us up here, you can call in artillery support on their position." It was a risky plan that required perfect timing and exceptional marksmanship. Jake shook his head. "That's suicide, Rodriguez. You're talking about engaging 20 enemy soldiers by yourself." But Marcus had already made up his mind. His training and natural abilities had prepared him for exactly this type of situation. "Trust me," Marcus said simply. "I know what I'm doing." He began identifying priority targets, starting with the enemy soldiers who posed the greatest threat to their escape route. His calculations had to be perfect because once he started shooting, stealth would no longer be an option. The first shot eliminated the enemy sniper positioned on the opposite ridge. The second shot took out the communications specialist, preventing the enemy from calling for reinforcements. By the time the enemy forces realized they were under attack, Marcus had already eliminated 4 of their key personnel. Chaos erupted in the valley below as enemy soldiers scrambled for cover, unsure where the shots were coming from. Marcus continued his methodical engagement, picking off targets with surgical precision while Jake coordinated artillery support. "Artillery inbound in 90 seconds, Jake reported. "We need to be clear of this area." But Marcus was still engaging targets, ensuring that none of the enemy soldiers could pursue them to the extraction point. The artillery strikes were devastating, eliminating the remaining enemy forces and creating a diversion that allowed Marcus and Jake to reach their extraction point without further interference. As they waited for the helicopter, Jake looked at his partner with newfound respect. "Rodriguez, what you did back there, I've never seen anything like it. You saved both our lives." Marcus just checked his weapon and prepared for extraction. For him, it was simply doing his job to the best of his ability. The graduation ceremony was held on a crisp autumn morning with family members and military officials in attendance. Marcus stood with 11 other soldiers who had successfully completed the advanced sniper training program. Out of the original class of 36 recruits, only 12 had made it through the rigorous 6-month course. Captain Mitchell addressed the graduates with pride in her voice. "You represent the finest marksmen in our military. Each of you has demonstrated exceptional skill, dedication, and mental toughness. You will now join elite units where your abilities will be put to the ultimate test." Marcus's parents had driven 18 hours from Texas to attend the ceremony. His father, a construction worker with calloused hands and a weathered face, struggled to hold back tears as he watched his son receive his certification. His mother clutched a photograph of Marcus's grandfather, who had passed away 2 years earlier but would have been incredibly proud. "I always knew you had it in you, Mijo," his mother whispered as she hugged him after the ceremony. "Your grandfather is watching from heaven, and he's smiling." Marcus felt a lump in his throat as he thought about the man who had started him on this journey so many years ago. The other graduates were being assigned to various special operations units around the world. Jake was heading to Germany with an airborne division, while others were going to different bases across the United States and overseas. Marcus waited nervously as Captain Mitchell approached with his assignment orders. "Rodriguez, you're being assigned to SEAL Team 7 in San Diego," she announced. "They specifically requested you based on your performance here." Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The Navy SEALs were legendary for their elite status and demanding standards. The flight to San Diego gave Marcus time to reflect on his journey. Just 2 years earlier, he had been a small-town kid with big dreams and little confidence. Now he was heading to join one of the military's most prestigious units. But he knew the real challenges were just beginning. SEAL Team 7's compound was an impressive facility with state-of-the-art training equipment and housing for team members. Commander James Harrison, a veteran of multiple deployments, met Marcus at the main gate. Harrison was a tall, imposing man with graying hair and intense blue eyes that seemed to see right through people. "So you're the hotshot sniper everyone's talking about," Harrison said, looking Marcus up and down skeptically. "I'll be honest, Rodriguez. You don't look like much, and some of my men are questioning whether you belong here. You'll have to prove yourself all over again." Marcus nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. I understand completely." He had expected this reaction and was prepared to earn his place through performance rather than appearance. The team consisted of 12 highly trained operators, each with specialized skills and years of combat experience. Marcus was introduced to the group during their evening briefing, and the reception was notably cool. Several team members exchanged glances that clearly indicated their skepticism about the new addition. Petty Officer First Class Tony Bulldog Martinez was particularly vocal about his concerns. Martinez was a massive man from Chicago who had served 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He had worked with snipers before and had strong opinions about what made a good operator. "No offense, Rodriguez, but you look like you should be in high school, not on a SEAL team," Martinez said bluntly. "When bullets start flying and people's lives are on the line, I need to know the guy watching my back can handle the pressure." Marcus understood their concerns completely. These men had earned their positions through years of dangerous missions and countless hours of training. They had every right to be skeptical of an unproven newcomer, especially one who didn't fit the typical mold of a special operations soldier. The team's training schedule was relentless. Daily physical conditioning, weapons training, tactical exercises, and specialized skills development filled every hour from dawn until dark. Marcus struggled with some of the physical demands, particularly swimming and diving exercises that were standard for all SEALs. His shooting skills, however, were undeniable. During live fire exercises, Marcus consistently outperformed even the most experienced team members. His ability to make precise shots at extreme distances under challenging conditions gradually earned grudging respect from some of his teammates. Sergeant First Class Kevin "Doc" Williams, the team's medic, was the first to warm up to Marcus. Doc was a thoughtful man from Minnesota who believed in giving everyone a fair chance. He noticed that Marcus never complained about the physical challenges and always gave maximum effort. "You know, Rodriguez, size isn't everything in this business," Doc told him one evening after a particularly brutal training session. "I've seen big, strong guys fold under pressure and small guys perform miracles. What matters is what's up here," he said, tapping his temple. Marcus appreciated Doc's encouragement, but he knew words wouldn't be enough. He needed to prove himself in a real operational environment, and that opportunity came sooner than expected. Intelligence reports indicated increased terrorist activity in a remote region where American interests were threatened. Commander Harrison called an emergency briefing for the entire team. "Gentlemen, we have a situation developing overseas. I can't give you all the details yet, but start preparing for possible deployment within 72 hours. This will be a high-risk operation requiring all our skills." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Equipment checks, mission planning, intelligence briefings, and final training exercises kept everyone busy around the clock. Marcus paid special attention to his rifle and scope, ensuring everything was perfectly calibrated for the mission ahead. As the team prepared to deploy, Marcus noticed that his teammates' attitudes toward him were slowly changing. While they still had reservations about his experience, they could see his dedication and professionalism. Martinez even offered some tactical advice based on his combat experience. "Listen, Rodriguez," Martinez said as they loaded equipment onto the transport aircraft. "I still think you're too green for this kind of work, but you seem solid. Just remember, in combat, hesitation kills. When you see a target, you take the shot. Don't think about it, don't second-guess yourself, just do your job." The flight to their staging area took 18 hours with multiple refueling stops. Marcus used the time to study mission briefings and mentally prepare for his first combat deployment. He thought about his grandfather's advice about staying calm under pressure and focusing on the fundamentals. Their destination was a forward operating base in a mountainous region where American forces were supporting local allies against terrorist groups. The base was austere, with basic accommodations and limited resources. Living conditions were Spartan, but Marcus had expected that. The team's first mission briefing revealed the complexity of their assignment. Intelligence indicated that a high-value terrorist leader was operating in the area, planning attacks against American interests. The terrain was extremely challenging, with elevations exceeding 10,000 feet and weather conditions that changed rapidly. "This isn't going to be easy, gentlemen," Commander Harrison explained as he pointed to satellite images of their target area. "We'll be operating in hostile territory with limited support. Every man will need to perform at his absolute best." Marcus studied the topographical maps carefully, noting potential shooting positions and escape routes. His grandfather had taught him to always have a plan before entering unfamiliar territory. The mountainous terrain would present unique challenges for long-range shooting, but it also offered excellent concealment opportunities. As the team made final preparations for their first mission, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was what he had trained for his entire life. But he knew that real combat would test him in ways that no training exercise could simulate. The next few days would determine whether he truly belonged with these elite warriors. The mission briefing took place at 0400 hours in a cramped operations tent, filled with maps, satellite photos, and communication equipment. Commander Harrison stood before his team, his face grave as he outlined their first assignment. Intelligence sources have confirmed that Abu Rashid, a high-level terrorist operative, will be meeting with local cell leaders in a compound approximately 40 kilometers northeast of our position. Harrison began. "Our job is to conduct surveillance and eliminate the target if the opportunity presents itself." Marcus studied the aerial photographs of the target area. The compound was situated in a valley surrounded by steep mountains, making approach and escape extremely difficult. Multiple buildings were scattered across the site, with guard towers and defensive positions clearly visible. "Rodriguez, you'll be our primary shooter for this operation," Harrison continued. "The closest viable shooting position is 800 meters from the target building. Can you make that shot?" Every eye in the tent focused on Marcus as he considered the question. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied confidently. 800 meters is well within my effective range, even with wind and elevation factors. He had made shots at that distance countless times during training, but this would be his first attempt with a human target. The team would insert by helicopter under cover of darkness and move overland to establish observation posts. Marcus would position himself on a ridge overlooking the compound while the rest of the team provided security and intelligence gathering. "Remember, gentlemen, this is enemy territory," Harrison emphasized. "Local forces are hostile, and we can expect resistance if we're discovered. Stay alert, follow your training, and bring everyone home safely." The helicopter insertion went smoothly, with the team landing in a remote valley several kilometers from their target. Marcus carried his rifle case along with standard equipment, moving carefully through the rocky terrain as they approached their objective. Petty Officer Martinez took point, using his extensive combat experience to guide the team through potential danger areas. Despite his earlier skepticism about Marcus, he made sure to check on the younger soldier regularly during the difficult climb. "You doing okay back there, Rodriguez?" Martinez whispered during a brief rest stop. "This altitude can be tough if you're not used to it." Marcus appreciated the concern, even though he was handling the physical demands better than expected. The team reached their positions just before dawn, with Marcus setting up his shooting platform on a rocky outcrop that provided an excellent view of the compound below. He carefully assembled his rifle and began calculating the various factors that would affect his shot. Wind speed and direction were critical at this distance. Marcus observed the movement of dust and vegetation to gauge conditions, making mental notes of how they changed throughout the morning. The elevation difference between his position and the target was approximately 200 meters, requiring compensation in his aim point. Through his scope, Marcus could see guards moving around the compound's perimeter. They appeared relaxed and confident, unaware that American forces were watching their every move. Several vehicles were parked inside the compound, suggesting that important meetings were indeed taking place. "Rodriguez, what do you see?" Commander Harrison's voice crackled softly through Marcus's radio earpiece. Marcus provided detailed observations about guard positions, building layouts, and potential escape routes for the target. "I count 12 guards visible, sir. 4 in the towers, 8 patrolling the grounds. There's significant activity around the main building, suggesting our target may already be inside." Marcus's training in observation and intelligence gathering was proving valuable beyond his shooting skills. Hours passed with no sign of Abu Rashid. The team maintained their positions, with Marcus remaining motionless behind his rifle despite the discomfort of lying on rocky ground. His grandfather had taught him that patience was a sniper's most important virtue. "Movement at the main entrance," Marcus reported quietly. A convoy of 3 vehicles was approaching the compound, kicking up dust clouds that would complicate any potential shot. Multiple passengers in each vehicle. Cannot identify specific individuals yet. The vehicles entered the compound and stopped near the main building. Marcus watched through his scope as several men emerged, one of whom matched the photographs of Abu Rashid they had studied during briefing. "Positive identification on primary target," Marcus whispered into his radio. Commander Harrison's response was immediate. "Roger that. You are cleared to engage when you have a clean shot." Marcus felt his heart rate increase slightly, but his breathing remained controlled. This was the moment he had trained for his entire life. Abu Rashid was surrounded by bodyguards as he walked toward the building entrance. Marcus tracked the target through his scope, waiting for a clear opportunity. The crosswind was gusting unpredictably, and several guards were positioned close to the target. "Target is moving toward the building," Marcus reported. Multiple guards in close proximity, waiting for clear shot opportunity. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Never take a shot unless you're absolutely certain. One mistake can cost lives." Suddenly, Abu Rashid stopped and turned to speak with one of his companions. For a brief moment, he was separated from the crowd of bodyguards, presenting a clear target. Marcus made rapid calculations for wind speed, distance, and bullet drop. The crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. Marcus controlled his breathing, applying steady pressure to the trigger as he had done thousands of times before. Time seemed to slow as he made his final preparations for the shot. "Clean shot available," Marcus whispered. His finger was already applying pressure to the trigger when something unexpected happened. A child, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, suddenly ran into the courtyard, chasing a ball that had bounced away from a group of children playing nearby. Marcus immediately released pressure on the trigger and lifted his eye from the scope. The child had run directly into his line of fire, making the shot impossible without risking civilian casualties. Abu Rashid continued walking toward the building, unaware of how close he had come to death. "Shot not taken," Marcus reported. "Civilian in the line of fire." He could hear the disappointment in Commander Harrison's voice as he acknowledged the report. The opportunity had been lost and Abu Rashid disappeared into the building. "Understood, Rodriguez. Maintain your position and wait for another opportunity," Harrison responded. Marcus settled back behind his rifle, knowing that he had made the right decision despite losing the chance to eliminate their target. Martinez's voice came through the radio with surprising warmth. "Good call, Rodriguez. That's what separates professionals from amateurs." The comment meant more to Marcus than any praise he had received during training. The team maintained their positions for another 6 hours, but Abu Rashid remained inside the building. As evening approached, Commander Harrison made the decision to withdraw rather than risk exposure during daylight hours. "All units, prepare for extraction," Harrison ordered. "We'll reposition and try again tomorrow." The team began their careful withdrawal from the area, moving under cover of darkness toward their pickup point. During the long hike back to the extraction site, Doc Williams moved alongside Marcus. "You did good today, Rodriguez. That was a tough decision, but you made the right choice. A lot of guys would have taken that shot without thinking about the consequences." Marcus appreciated the support, but he couldn't help feeling disappointed about missing the opportunity. His grandfather had always emphasized the importance of protecting innocent people, and Marcus knew he had honored that principle even at the cost of completing his mission. The helicopter extraction went smoothly, and the team returned to their forward operating base to debrief and plan their next attempt. Commander Harrison gathered everyone in the operations tent to discuss what they had learned. Today's mission provided valuable intelligence about enemy positions and procedures. Harrison began. "Rodriguez showed excellent judgment in not taking a shot that could have resulted in civilian casualties. That kind of decision-making is exactly what I expect from this team." The debriefing continued for over an hour, with each team member contributing observations and suggestions for improvement. Marcus noticed that his teammates were treating him differently now, with more respect and acceptance than he had experienced since joining the unit. 3 days later, intelligence reports indicated that Abu Rashid was planning to move to a new location. The team received orders for an immediate interdiction mission to prevent his escape. This time, the target would be traveling in a convoy along a mountain road where ambush opportunities were limited. Commander Harrison spread detailed maps across the planning table as the team gathered for their briefing. "Gentlemen, this is our best chance to eliminate the target. Intelligence suggests he'll be traveling this route tomorrow morning between 0800 and 1000 hours." Marcus studied the topographical features along the proposed ambush site. The road wound through a narrow valley with steep sides, offering excellent concealment for a sniper position. However, the longest clear shot would be approximately 1,200 meters, pushing the limits of even his exceptional abilities. "Rodriguez, I'm going to ask you to attempt something that's never been done by our unit," Harrison said seriously. "We need you to engage the target at 1,200 meters while the convoy is moving." "Can you do it?" The request was extraordinary. Hitting a moving target at that distance required not only perfect marksmanship, but also precise timing and calculation of multiple variables. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Sir, I'll need time to study the terrain and wind patterns," Marcus replied. "A moving target at that distance is possible, but everything has to be perfect." He was confident in his abilities, but he also understood the enormous challenges involved. The team moved out before dawn, traveling overland to avoid detection by enemy forces known to patrol the area. Marcus carried additional ammunition and a backup rifle, understanding that this mission would test every skill he had developed. The climb to the shooting position was treacherous, requiring the team to navigate steep rocky slopes and loose shale that could give away their position. Martinez took point again, but this time he frequently checked to ensure Marcus was keeping up with the difficult pace. "This terrain reminds me of Afghanistan," Martinez commented during a brief rest. "Same kind of mountains, same kind of rocks trying to kill you with every step." Despite the danger, there was a sense of camaraderie developing among the team members. Marcus reached his shooting position 2 hours before the expected arrival of the target convoy. He used the time to study wind patterns, test his range estimation, and prepare his equipment. The shooting platform he constructed from rocks in his pack would need to be absolutely stable for such a long shot. Through his scope, Marcus could see the entire length of road where the ambush would take place. He identified several reference points along the route and calculated the precise lead time needed to hit a vehicle traveling at different speeds. "This is Rodriguez in position," he reported through his radio. "I have clear observation of the target area. Wind is currently 8 miles per hour from the northwest, but conditions are variable. Commander Harrison and the rest of the team had positioned themselves at strategic points along the valley to provide security and intelligence. If Marcus missed his shot, or if the convoy included more vehicles than expected, they would need to adapt quickly. "All units, we have movement on the access road," came Doc Williams' voice through the radio. 3 vehicles approaching from the south. Estimated arrival in 15 minutes. Marcus felt his heart rate increase, but he forced himself to remain calm and focused. The convoy came into view exactly as intelligence had predicted. 3 black SUVs traveled in formation, maintaining a steady speed of approximately 40 miles per hour. Marcus could see armed guards in each vehicle, their weapons clearly visible. "Rodriguez, can you identify the target vehicle?" Harrison asked. Marcus studied each SUV through his scope, looking for distinguishing features that might indicate which one carried Abu Rashid. "Target is in the second vehicle," Marcus reported. "I can see a passenger in the back seat who matches our target profile." He had caught a brief glimpse of the man's face and was confident in his identification. The convoy was now within range, but Marcus waited for the optimal moment to take his shot. At 200 meters, he would have approximately 1 second between pulling the trigger and the bullet reaching its target. The vehicle would travel nearly 60 feet during that time. "Engaging target now," Marcus whispered into his radio. He had selected a point on the road where the vehicle would be fully exposed with no cover or concealment nearby. His crosshairs tracked the second SUV as it approached the predetermined location. Marcus controlled his breathing and began applying pressure to the trigger. He had calculated the exact lead time needed to account for the vehicle's speed and the bullet's flight time. Everything depended on perfect timing and steady aim. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed through the valley. Marcus remained motionless, watching through his scope as the bullet traveled toward its target. At this distance, he could actually see the projectile's path as it arced through the air. The bullet struck the passenger window of the second SUV with devastating effect. The vehicle immediately swerved off the road and crashed into a rocky outcrop, while the other 2 SUVs accelerated rapidly to escape the ambush zone. "Target hit, vehicle disabled," Marcus reported calmly. Through his scope, he could see that the second SUV was completely immobilized, with smoke beginning to rise from the engine compartment. There was no movement from the passenger compartment. The surviving vehicles disappeared around a bend in the road, their occupants likely radiating for support. Commander Harrison's voice came through the radio immediately. "Outstanding shot, Rodriguez. All units prepare for immediate extraction. Enemy reinforcements will be inbound soon." Marcus quickly broke down his position, packing his rifle and equipment with practiced efficiency. The shot had been perfect, but now survival depended on getting out of the area before enemy forces could surround them. His small size became an advantage as he moved rapidly down the steep slope. "Rodriguez, that was incredible," Martinez said as they regrouped at the base of the ridge. "I've never seen anything like that shot. 1,200 meters on a moving target. That's legendary stuff." The respect in his voice was genuine and hard-earned. The team moved quickly toward their extraction point, knowing that enemy forces would soon be swarming the area. Marcus felt a mixture of satisfaction and adrenaline as they navigated the difficult terrain. He had proven himself in the most demanding circumstances possible. As they reached the pickup zone, helicopter rotors could be heard approaching from the distance. The extraction went smoothly, with the team aboard and airborne within minutes of the aircraft's arrival. As they flew back to base, Marcus looked down at the valley where he had just made the most important shot of his career. "Rodriguez, that shot will go down in SEAL Team 7 history," Commander Harrison said over the helicopter's intercom. "You've proven beyond any doubt that you belong with this unit." The words meant everything to Marcus, coming from a man whose respect was not easily earned. Back at the forward operating base, news of the successful mission spread quickly. The elimination of Abu Rashid was a significant victory in the ongoing fight against terrorism, and Marcus's exceptional marksmanship had made it possible. Other units requested details about the shot, unable to believe the distance and conditions involved. Doc Williams found Marcus cleaning his rifle in the team's gear area. "You know, Rodriguez, when you first joined us, I'll admit I had my doubts. You didn't look like the typical SEAL operator, but what you did today proves that courage and skill matter more than size or appearance." Marcus appreciated the acknowledgement, but he remained humble about his achievement. "I just did my job, Doc. The whole team made that mission successful, not just one shot. His grandfather had taught him that individual achievements meant nothing without teamwork and support. That evening, the team gathered for an informal celebration of their successful mission. Stories were shared, jokes were told, and Marcus found himself truly accepted as a full member of the unit for the first time. The doubts and skepticism that had followed him throughout his career were finally beginning to fade. Martinez approached Marcus with 2 cups of coffee and sat down beside him. "You know, Rodriguez, I owe you an apology. When you first arrived, I didn't think you had what it takes to be a SEAL. I was wrong, and I'm man enough to admit it." Marcus shook his hand warmly. "No apology needed, Martinez. You had every right to be skeptical. I had to prove myself just like everyone else." The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship, transforming former skepticism into mutual respect. Commander Harrison called Marcus aside for a private conversation. "Rodriguez, I've been contacted by higher headquarters about your performance today. Word is getting around about what you accomplished, and there are people who want to meet you." The implications were significant. Marcus's exceptional shot had attracted attention from senior military leadership, opening possibilities for advanced assignments and specialized training. However, he was content with his current position and teammates. "Sir, I appreciate any recognition, but I'm happy where I am," Marcus replied. "This team gave me a chance when no one else would, and I want to continue serving with them." His loyalty to the men who had eventually accepted him was absolute. Harrison smiled and nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the answer I hoped to hear, Rodriguez. Loyalty and humility are just as important as marksmanship skills. You'll go far in this organization." As the celebration continued, Marcus thought about his journey from a doubted recruit to a respected SEAL team member. The path had been difficult, filled with challenges and setbacks, but perseverance and dedication had ultimately prevailed. His grandfather's lessons about patience, precision, and protecting others had guided him through every obstacle. The old man's spirit seemed to be watching over Marcus as he achieved the goals they had discussed so many years ago in the Texas countryside. The next morning brought new intelligence reports and mission briefings. The war against terrorism continued, and SEAL Team 7 would soon be tasked with new objectives. Marcus prepared his equipment with the same meticulous care he had always shown, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. But now he faced those challenges as a proven warrior, accepted and respected by his peers. The doubts and rejections of his past had been replaced by confidence and camaraderie. Marcus Rodriguez had found his place among America's elite warriors, and he was ready to serve with distinction. 6 months later, SEAL Team 7 received their most challenging assignment yet. Intelligence reports indicated that a group of American hostages was being held in a heavily fortified compound, deep in enemy territory. The rescue mission would require every skill the team had developed, with Marcus's sniper abilities playing a crucial role. The hostages were 3 American aid workers who had been captured while delivering medical supplies to a remote village. Their captors were demanding the release of imprisoned terrorists in exchange for the Americans' lives. The government's policy was clear: no negotiations with terrorists. Commander Harrison gathered his team for the most comprehensive briefing of their deployment. "Gentlemen, this is what we train for. 3 innocent Americans are counting on us to bring them home safely. The compound is heavily defended and will be operating without backup in hostile territory." Marcus studied the aerial photographs and satellite imagery of the target compound with intense focus. The facility was larger and more complex than anything they had encountered before, with multiple buildings, guard towers, and defensive positions spread across several acres. "Rodriguez, you'll be our primary overwatch for this operation," Harrison explained. "We need you positioned where you can provide covering fire for the assault team and eliminate any threats that emerge during the rescue." The responsibility was enormous, but Marcus felt ready for the challenge. The compound was situated on a hillside with limited approach routes, making infiltration extremely difficult. The rescue team would have to move through a narrow valley, while Marcus provided overwatch from a ridge approximately 800 meters away. Timing would be critical for mission success. "The hostages are being held in the main building here." Harrison pointed to the largest structure in the compound. "Intelligence suggests they're guarded by at least 20 enemy fighters, with more stationed throughout the facility. We'll have one chance to get this right." Preparation for the mission was more intensive than anything the team had previously undertaken. They rehearsed every aspect of the operation repeatedly, Using detailed mock-ups and computer simulations to perfect their timing and coordination, Marcus spent countless hours studying the compound layout, identifying potential threats and calculating shot angles from his overwatch position. He mapped out every window, doorway, and defensive position that might conceal enemy fighters during the assault. Doc Williams worked with Marcus on medical considerations for the mission. "Rodriguez, if any of our guys get hit during the assault, you might be our only way to suppress enemy fire while we treat casualties. Your shooting could mean the difference between life and death." The weight of responsibility was heavier than Marcus had ever experienced. Not only would he need to protect his teammates during the assault, but the lives of 3 innocent hostages also depended on his performance. Failure was not an option. Martinez, who had become one of Marcus's strongest supporters, offered tactical advice based on his extensive combat experience. "Remember, Rodriguez, in a complex operation like this, things never go exactly as planned. Stay flexible and trust your instincts." The team inserted by helicopter under cover of darkness, landing several kilometers from the target compound. The approach march took them through difficult mountain terrain, requiring careful navigation to avoid enemy patrols and observation posts. Marcus carried additional ammunition and specialized equipment for his overwatch position. His rifle had been fitted with a night vision scope for low-light conditions, and he carried backup optics in case of equipment failure during the mission. The team reached their final positions just before dawn, with Marcus establishing his overwatch post on a rocky outcrop that provided excellent visibility of the entire compound. Through his scope, he could see guards moving around the facility, unaware that American forces were preparing to strike. "Rodriguez in position," he reported quietly through his radio. "I have clear observation of the entire target area, counting multiple guards at various positions throughout the compound." His detailed reconnaissance provided crucial intelligence for the assault team. Commander Harrison's voice crackled through the radio. "Roger that, Rodriguez. Assault team is moving into position. Be ready to provide covering fire on my command." The final phase of the operation was beginning, and everyone understood the stakes involved. Through his scope, Marcus watched as his teammates moved stealthily toward the compound perimeter. Their approach was flawless, demonstrating the high level of training and coordination that made SEAL teams so effective. "Contact," came Martinez's urgent whisper through the radio. "Guard patrol spotted us. Engaging now." The sound of suppressed gunfire broke the morning silence as the carefully planned stealth approach became a combat operation. Marcus immediately began scanning for targets through his scope. 2 enemy fighters appeared on a rooftop, attempting to set up a machine gun position that would threaten the assault team. Without hesitation, Marcus engaged both targets with rapid, precise shots. 2 tangos down on the northeast rooftop, Marcus reported. "Assault team has clear passage to the main building." His shooting had eliminated a significant threat before it could endanger his teammates. The assault continued, with Marcus providing continuous overwatch, engaging any enemy fighters who appeared to threaten the rescue operation. His position allowed him to see the entire battlefield and coordinate with the assault team in real time. "We have the hostages," came Doc Williams' voice through the radio. 3 Americans, all alive but in poor condition. We need immediate extraction." The primary objective had been accomplished, but getting everyone out safely would be just as challenging. Enemy reinforcements were arriving from other parts of the compound, converging on the main building where the rescue was taking place. Marcus counted at least a dozen fighters moving to intercept the assault team's withdrawal route. "Rodriguez, we need suppressive fire on the courtyard," Commander Harrison requested urgently. "Multiple tangos blocking our exit route." Marcus immediately shifted his focus to the designated area, where enemy fighters were taking positions behind concrete barriers. Working methodically from left to right, Marcus engaged each target with deadly precision. His exceptional marksmanship skills allowed him to neutralize threats, while his teammates moved the rescued hostages to safety. Each shot was calculated to provide maximum support for the extraction. "Outstanding shooting, Rodriguez," Martinez called through the radio. "You're keeping these guys' heads down while we move the hostages." The appreciation in his voice reflected the life or death importance of Marcus's contribution to the mission. As the assault team reached the compound perimeter, with the rescued hostages, enemy forces launched a desperate counterattack. Marcus found himself engaging multiple targets simultaneously, his rifle becoming the primary factor preventing enemy forces from overwhelming the rescue operation. One particularly dangerous threat emerged when an enemy sniper took position in a guard tower, preparing to engage the fleeing Americans. Marcus spotted the threat immediately and engaged with a shot that eliminated the enemy marksman before he could fire. "Sniper down in the south tower," Marcus reported. "Assault team has clear egress to the extraction point." His vigilance and quick reaction had prevented what could have been a catastrophic development for the mission. The helicopter extraction was completed successfully, with all team members and rescued hostages aboard the aircraft within minutes. As they flew away from the compound, Marcus could see enemy forces gathering in the courtyard below. Too late to prevent the successful rescue. "Rodriguez, your shooting today saved lives," Commander Harrison said over the aircraft's intercom. "Without your overwatch, this mission would have been impossible." The rescued hostages were receiving medical attention, but they were alive and free. Back at base, the successful hostage rescue made international headlines. The 3 American aid workers were reunited with their families, and SEAL Team 7 was credited with a flawless operation under extremely challenging conditions. Marcus found himself at the center of attention as word spread about his exceptional performance during the mission. Senior military officials and media representatives wanted interviews, but he remained focused on his duties and his teammates. Years later, Marcus would be promoted to senior enlisted ranks and eventually become an instructor at the Navy's premier sniper school. His story of overcoming doubt and rejection to become one of the military's most respected marksmen inspired countless young soldiers. But on that day, sitting with his teammates after the successful rescue, Marcus was simply grateful for the opportunity to serve alongside the finest warriors he had ever known. The journey from a doubted recruit to a proven SEAL had been long and difficult, but every challenge had been worth reaching this moment of quiet satisfaction and brotherhood.